the guy who originally sent the postcard, who was driving around the neighborhoods taking pictures for us, he found another property that had just recently burnt down, and he chased the owner down. We've done several deals with him over the years. And anyway, so he's up there and he's like, hey, did you guys buy that property? I'm like, yeah, we did. Why? He's like, oh, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you guys. When am I going to get paid? I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, you're not going to get paid on this one. I paid the other guy $1,000 because he gave me the relationship. Sure enough, I go back and I look on Deal Machine, and I'm like, oh, dude, I am so sorry. I felt so bad. I'm like, dude, I'm a man of my word. Here you go, Venmo, bam, $500 to the guy. So even though he wasn't the reason why we bought the house, he still gave us the marketing. And I'm sure, and that lady, when I called her, she goes, oh yeah, I remember you from your postcards. And so there was some familiarity there. So anyway, the lead ended up costing me, instead of $1,000 or $500, it cost me $1,500, which I gladly would have done when you hear the rest of the story. Hey, what's up, bootstrappers? This is Ryan Nickel coming at you with another walkthrough Wednesday. So here I am. I'm sitting outside of an appointment. My appointment's not until 10 o'clock, and they're not here yet. So we'll just sit here and wait until they show up, and I'll go ahead and do this walkthrough Wednesday. So I've been thinking about doing this, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to wait until it closed. So I wanted to walk you through a deal. I got to tell you, if you're not reaching out to local people, neighbors, bird doggers, things like that, you're missing out on opportunities to find deals, because they are the local eyes and ears in neighborhoods that you don't live in, and they know what's going down. So let me just go ahead and walk you through this. So there's a town that's about 45 minutes away from me, and I own a few properties up there. There's a side of town that I'm not that familiar with, but every once in a while, another wholesaler will pop up on my list, and they have this property for sale out in this side of town. And I've over the years, I've heard this kind of like a rougher area, but it's starting to come around. It's like a revitalization area. It's still pretty rough. The prices are pretty affordable because it is a rougher side of town. And so anyway, one of the guys that had bought one of my properties was looking to make some extra money, and he wanted to get involved in real estate. And so this is the deal that I set up with him. I said, tell you what, you go take pictures of properties and send me the addresses along with the pictures, and I will put them into an app called Deal Machine. Now, Deal Machine will allow me to track it so that I can know where this particular quote unquote lead came from your. So basically, I got the picture of the property and the address, and I just started mailing. And I said, if I end up closing this deal, I'll pay you $500 for this deal. So that was the deal. So he went and just drove neighborhoods after neighborhood after neighborhood, just sending me addresses and pictures, and I put them all on Deal Machine, and they've been going out quite regularly. And so that was in February of last year, so almost a year ago. And so this person's been getting postcards, and for me, my postcards, I mail them every 60 days, every 30. I used to do every 15 days. Realize that, one, it's very expensive, especially when you have thousands of properties. And two, I realized that they're just getting bombarded with people just mailing to these lists. Some of them are going to be on other lists. Some of them are not, because they're cultivated just through driving around the neighborhoods, driving for dollars. So I bumped it back early on from 15 to 30, and I realized that at 30, when I started tracking my metrics on it, that my average phone call didn't come in until after the second or third postcard. And so what I started to do was realizing, okay, you know what, they're getting a lot of stuff. They're looking for consistency. But I started to, I just made the decision to go 60 days out. So I mail every 60 days, but I also rotate my lists. So I have stuff going out every 30 days, staggered, basically is laddered. So anyway, I don't want to give you too much detail about that, because that's not pertinent to this particular deal. So that's how that was going down. I went out to, I had a wholesaler who called me on a property, and I went out and I looked at it. It's actually a property we ended up passing on because there's way too many problems with this particular property. But while I was there, this guy was there, this young kid. He's like, hey man, you do real estate? I'm like, yeah, I do. He's like, oh, can I get involved in this? I'm like, of course you can. Here's my card. This is what we do. I tell you what, you find me some properties, you give me the address and a picture of it, and I'll pay you $500 for it. He goes, oh, okay, 500 is cool, but actually I'm looking to make a little bit more money. I'm like, tell you what, if you actually find the owner, track the owner down, make an introduction to me, I'll pay you $1,000 if I close on that deal because you've done a little bit of extra work. And he's like, okay, that's cool, man. That's cool. I'll do that. So about a week and a half later, I get a call from the guy. He's like, hey, call this person. I met him over at their house, and they're waiting for a phone call from you, and they want to sell their house. So sure enough, I called him up, and she's like, oh yeah. I want to sell my house. And so I met her out at the property. And, the property is all boarded up, had been boarded up for years. And I'm like, how come you wanted to sell it right now? She's like, oh, well, I haven't been able to sell this house for a long time. Actually, I had it in escrow one time, and then we couldn't close. I was like, really? What happened? She's like, oh, my dad died, and I guess I don't own it. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, if your dad died, who's on title? And she's like, oh, my dad is. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're going to have to probate this thing. And there was a problem with the probate and all that. She's like, well, it's in a trust, and I have the trust. I'm the executor of the trust. I'm like, that's odd. You should have been able to, take care of things. But I'll take a look at it. I'm definitely interested. And she was like, well, I want the same price I had back then. I wanted $47,000 for it. I'm like, okay, $47,000. It's kind of high for that neighborhood, tell you that. $47,000 is high, but I was like, oh, we'll see what we can do. So, and I'm like, I need the trust. So she sends me the trust, and the trust comes, and sure enough, when they executed the trust, what happens now is when you set the trust up, it goes through all of the requirements of what the trust is, and it spells out who the beneficiaries are, what the trust is there for, and then it has a section that has the assets, and there were no assets. There were no assets added into this particular trust. At least the copy that she had given me. And so, with that said, I was like, you have a defunct trust here. This trust is not fully executed because there's no assets to transferred into this trust to make it a fully executed trust. And so it's just a trust on paper, but there's no assets that this trust owns. And so she's like, well, my dad only had this house and the attorney set it up, so surely it's somewhere, right? I'm like, yeah, it sounds like it is. So there's in California, there's something called a Hegstead. And what a Hegstead Act is, it allows for you to take a trust and a property and transfer a property after the decedent or after the death of the person who owns the trust and the property, and transfer it after the fact into the trust. And so I'm like, this is a clear Hegstead remedy here. All we have to do is to petition the courts through probate, of course, petition the probate courts to transfer ownership of the deceased person's home into the trust, who now the daughter owns the trust, or she's the beneficiary and the executor of the trust, and then she can therefore sell it to us. So we had to go through this process. The problem is that the asset page wasn't there. So miraculously, after long, hard search, she found the pages, and we submitted it to our attorney. We went to court, did all this thing, and they transferred it to her, and we ended up buying it. So, back up here now. So, we closed on the property. We bought it for $47,000. I was like, oh man, that's a bit high. I mean, we paid for the probate too. The probate was about $4,000. So we're into this thing, $51,000, and I'm like, I don't know, this is a bit high for this neighborhood. I feel kind of sheepish because I really didn't negotiate with her at all. I just said, oh, you want $47,000? Sure, let's do this. And then the more I looked at the house, I'm like, I probably should have done a little bit more negotiations, because anyway, didn't work out that way. I got lazy, just took it for what it was. So I'm up there. We've cleaned out the property, and we're whitewashing the walls. We're painting them, and we're going to put on the market as is. So again, it's all boarded up, and we're just going to put a new door on it so that realtors can get in and out of it, because we're going to put it on the MLS. And so we do this, and the guy who originally sent the postcard, who was driving around the neighborhoods taking pictures for us, he found another property that had just recently burnt down, and he chased the owner down. We've done several deals with him over the years. And anyway, so he's up there and he's like, hey, did you guys buy that property? I'm like, yeah, we did. Why? He's like, oh, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you guys. When am I going to get paid? I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, you're not going to get paid on this one. I paid the other guy $1,000 because he gave me the relationship. Sure enough, I go back and I look on Deal Machine, and I'm like, oh, dude, I am so sorry. I felt so bad. I'm like, dude, I'm a man of my word. Here you go, Venmo, bam, $500 to the guy. So even though he wasn't the reason why we bought the house, he still gave us the marketing. And I'm sure, and that lady, when I called her, she goes, oh yeah, I remember you from your postcards. And so there was some familiarity there. So anyway, the lead ended up costing me, instead of $1,000 or $500, it cost me $1,500, which I gladly would have done when you hear the rest of the story. So I go ahead and, I pay the kid $500. The other guy ends up being, he lives 2 houses down. So when you talk to her and set things up, he's the neighbor. He lives 2 houses down. I paid him $1,000 cash because I was up there that day with him. And he just was happy. He's like, dude, this is the first time I've ever made money in real estate. I've never made money in real estate before. I've been trying to do this thing for a long time. And I'm like, cool, man. $1,000 is, that's money. It's not like it's nothing. It's money. Let's go do some more, because all he did was make an introduction. I mean, $1,000 introduction, what was that? 25 minutes of his time, maybe? I don't know. So, great ROI for him. So what we ended up doing was, we whitewashed the walls of this house, and we ended up, there was a small code enforcement bill on it for, I think, about $3,600. So now we're into it for about $5,400. And then because the house had not been lived in for a long time, and they had squatters over the years, the city had come out and taken the meter off. And so when they took the meter off, the pipes got all jacked up. And so we had to actually, fortunately, the house lays on a corner lot, huge corner lot, and it's in an alleyway, and the sewer line just goes down the alley. So we just tapped into that. No permit fees, nothing. It was just a straight thing. We connected. I think that cost us all in all about $1,000 in labor and materials and stuff like that, to have our crew go up there and do that. So we're into this for $55,000 on the MLS. Here we go, moment of truth. We put it on the MLS, asking for $98,500 for it, and got a bunch of lowball offers, like $65,000, $70,000. One guy says he'll take it for $77,000, sight unseen, drives by and goes, oh, forget that, dude, $62,000. So we're like, oh crap, dude, did we screw up here? And I'm starting to beat myself up now. Now I'm like, oh man, I probably should have negotiated this a little bit better, maybe bought it for $30,000. That way these 60 offers, aren't so bad. But we're into it for $55,000 and $60,000, and then we have a real estate commission on top of it. That's not going to work out. And okay, my appointment's here. I'll go ahead and wrap this up. Long story short, we got a full price offer. Someone from the Bay Area. They've been buying houses in this area, turning them into rentals, and $98,000 was a steal for them for what they're going to do with it. And we're just like, hallelujah. So, $55,000 all in, $98,000 minus commissions. Not a bad payday for someone else finding the deal and, making the introduction. Again, like I said, there was very little negotiations on my part, but I did have the knowledge and the expertise to know exactly what needed to happen with this trust, because she would not have been able to sell to somebody else. Hegstead is it's not a very commonly known thing, but it's also it's very tricky, because you have to present it just right to the courts in order to get the Hegstead to work, because they can kick it out and say, no, this is not a proper transfer. So anyway, I got paid for my expertise on how to close that particular deal. So I just wanted to walk you through that particular deal on a walkthrough Wednesday. But guys, check this out. All it takes is one deal to change your entire financial future. One deal like that. I mean, gosh, we netted on that thing. I think it was, with commissions and title and everything else, it was about 40,000 that we netted on it. Not bad. Not bad at all. So with that, go out there, make some money. If there's anything I can do to help you, just reach out. You got my contact information. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you're liking these videos and you want more great content. In the meantime, I'll see you guys later.